Thank you. I keep changing the name of the theme for this series. Started off as living our principles in this time of social distancing. And then as we began to shelter in place, I said living our principles in a time of sheltering in place. Then I had my awareness raised that, those of us that can socially distance and those that can shelter in place are really people of great privilege. We have the privilege of having the space to do this. We have the privilege of the luxury of maybe not having to get up in the morning and get on a crowded bus to go to our work because we're an essential worker and get on a crowded elevator. So I've changed the name again to Living Our Principles in this time of great crisis. And the principle that we are focusing on this morning is our fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and how we can live that principle in this time of crisis. So we'll unpack that principle and those words a little bit. The first part is the part about a free search. A free search. We consider ourselves a free church. UUs are kind of independent people. We say, don't fence me in. Don't tell me what I have to believe and what I have to think. We like being free. This is a quote from James Luther Adams, which I really like about the free church. He says, I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nurtures their integrity and spiritual freedom, that yearns to belong to a church universal. It is open to insight and conscious from every source. It bursts through rigid tradition, giving rise to new and living language, to a new and broader fellowship. It is a pilgrim church, a servant church, on an adventure of the Spirit. Famous Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams gives us that message about the freedom. And then a responsible search, not just free, but responsible. Some people say Unitarian Universalists can do anything, believe anything, do anything. No, we're not going to do anything. You won't, now, even though the scripture says I can handle snakes, I am not going to be doing that. I do not consider that responsible. So that is not something I'm going to do in my search for truth and meaning. Now, Timothy Leary tells us the best way to find spiritual truth is take an LSD trip. Yeah, I'm not going to question him on that possibility, but I'm not going to go there because I don't know what that might do to my head, and also it's illegal. So that's not responsible to me. I am not going to be doing that as I search for truth and meaning. And then there's some that say you have to just really suffer, self-flagellate, like they used to do back in the Middle Ages. There are people who still believe that they've got to do terrific, horrible things to them in order to find themselves, to be able to find some truth. I don't think, causing ourselves great harm or others is going to be killing chickens or anything else is going to be a responsible way to find truth and meaning. So we say free and responsible, to find what? First is truth. I like this quote by Nietzsche, but you will have gathered what I am getting at, namely, that it is still a metaphysical faith on which our faith in science rests. That even we knowers of today, we godless anti-metaphysicians will still take our fire from the flame lit by the 1,000-year-old faith of the Christian faith, which was also Plato's faith, that God is truth, that what we lift up and look up as sacred, that truth is divine. Truth is what is divine for many of us. And then I asked some of you all about that, about this truth and meaning. During this crisis, what are some truths that have been learned for you or reinforced during this crisis? And I got a lot of feedback. I don't have them all listed here, but I've got some that I'm going to share with you. I've seen that most people are generally good. Fear destroys our humanness and our humaneness. Now, some of these truths may seem to contradict each other because we're seeing different kinds of things, and learning different truths. Our democracy is at risk. The voting public must find responsible ways to act on that information. We need one another, is the truth. The interconnected human spirit that seeks to help others while simultaneously knowing me to draw strength from others. That's a big truth. We need to be connected. We need one another. More than ever, the world reeks of stark inequality, is mostly powerless, distraught, easily distracted, easily misled, easily divided. Some have seen that really become very apparent during this crisis. That the pandemic squeezing down on our lives has led to a burst of originality. What we're doing right here in this service, we've had to use some originality and creativity of how we can be together in many different ways. And that squeezing down has opened up creativity and originality for many folks. And the great inequality of wealth among us must not be allowed to continue. Oh, how evident that has been made during this crisis. If you have some other truth that you want to share, you can put that in the chat box. But we're learning things. We're seeking and learning truths that become evident during this crisis. And then we have meaning that we're searching for, life's meaning, the big questions. Why are we here? And what is our purpose in life? And what matters? What matters? I like this Venn diagram. We have things that matter. We could make a whole list of things that matter. But then we also have things that we can control. There are a lot of things that we can't do anything about. We got to understand that. And that part in the middle where they overlap is what you should focus on. That's what the serenity prayer is all about, right? So try to focus on those things. There are things that we can't control, even if it matters, but there are things that we can do, like that little hummingbird in the story, children's story. We can do what we can. Do what we can. Similarly, I ask you to share some big questions that have been raised during this crisis for you, and I will share some of those that I received. Here are those. How easy or difficult is it to collapse our society? Are we all skating on a thin ice of justice, economic security, and life as we generally know it? What can we learn from history to recover? Many of us are going back and looking at some of the epidemics in the past, and trying to see what can we learn from crisis in the past. Am I living on purpose? Actually spending my time in alignment with my values, growing my soul, opening to receive and channel love? How self-disciplined can we be? Can the average Joe or Jolene in the street be self-disciplined? We've heard of a lot of people reporting that folks are not following the guidelines like they need to be. Can we be self-disciplined? How will this pandemic impact our children's future? That's a big question that's in my heart, and I'm sure in yours as well. And how can we generate appreciation of science-based education across all people and children, looking at real evidence of what we can do and have an appreciation for that? And there are others, and if you have others, you can also share those with other people in our chat box. As we search for truth and meaning, many of us find it good to get on a path and follow a path. Sometimes that's path led by a teacher like Jesus or Muhammad or others, philosophers or others that kind of can help guide us on our path. Some of us feel better just kind of wandering in our path, but many of us do kind of find a path, worldview or theology that helps us in our search for truth and meaning. Unitarian Universalists, though, don't limit our paths. We support you on your own path, and we have lots of folks that take different paths. So what I have for you now is little video clips I'm going to show that actually I collected 5 years ago from 5 different people that were on different spiritual paths, different religious or different worldview paths, that were all Unitarian Universalists, just to show you some of the diversity we have in how folks approach the search for truth and meaning within different paths. You can see their names here as we look at these.
To the question of how does Buddhism help in my search for truth and meaning? Well, my gut reaction to that question is that without my meditation practice, I would not be able to recognize truth or meaning. I would be lost in fear and anxiety and really delusion, as habitual patterns really block us from seeing the truth. Unless we die young, all of us will eventually encounter sickness, old age, and death. And of course, those things are painful, or they can be very painful. But what I'm learning is that suffering in those events and in other events really increases or decreases depending on our habit of mind or the way we approach it. So with Buddhism, we're training ourselves for sickness, old age, and death, and really for living for joy and happiness as well. We're training and preparing ourselves for the inevitable. Unlike religions that worship a historical figure such as Jesus or Muhammad, Buddhism is not really about worshiping Buddha. It's more about looking inward and asking, what am I doing? And what are the likely consequences of my behavior or my attitudes?
My name is Isaac Davis Jr., and I am a Unitarian Universalist member of Coastal Georgia. Reverend Jane sent me an email about a day ago, maybe a day and a half ago, and she asked me to talk about my spirituality, how to identify myself, and my journey. Well, I am a Unitarian Universalist spiritual person. I believe in a higher being. I believe in a creator who has created everything. I may even have some belief in some Christianity, because I started off in my life when I was younger as a Baptist. My family were all Baptists, so that background was where I came from. But a lot of beliefs of the Baptist churches I could not identify with anymore. So when my friend gave me an opportunity to come to this church to seek a new awareness, a religious awareness, I jumped at it. I was really excited about it, and a lot of his 7 principles resonated with me in my own personal journey. So that's where I'm at today. What do I identify as in terms of my journey? I'm still going through that journey. I'm still trying to seek out, how do I feel as a UU spiritual person? What do I feel about the role that I play as a UU spiritual person? And what role do I play in the scheme of things of this higher being that's directing all of us? So it's a very interesting question. I'm still seeking it out. I'm still trying to learn more about it, about who I am spiritually. And I think that as I continue on my journey as a UU spiritual person at the Coastal Georgia church, I will find my answers. And I hope this helps. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Brock. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Statesboro, but I also attend the UU Coastal Georgia congregation a lot, as I'm down on Brunswick quite a bit. I identify mainly as a UU humanist, and I use that in my spiritual practice because I am a person that likes new information. So I think humanism helps me incorporate new information and move forward in life with both the regular questions that you might have, like what kind of job are you going to have, and also the big questions like why are we here and what will happen after we die. And so based on my humanist belief, I'm optimistic that life here on Earth is the one and only and is the way to go forward, and we need to act now because there is not a hereafter or a supernatural that to look forward to. That is just us, men and women, working together on issues that UUs hold dear.
I'm Justin. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Statesboro. I'm a UU and an agnostic. For me, this means I could search for truth and meaning at my own pace, and I also don't feel obligated to believe in any one particular thing.
Lacy.
And I'm Michael, and we're from UU of Coastal Georgia.
I'm a UU Pagan.
And I'm a UU Heathen.
Our religious paths seek truth through relationships with the earth and with one another.
And our faiths tie us to our ancestors and to their myths and legends. In our lives, UU gives us a network of people with whom we can connect to celebrate our holidays and tell our stories.
Even though there is no one here that believes exactly like I do or exactly as Michael does, the UU is full of open-minded, accepting people that help form a community and a web of support for us.
As UUs, we have danced the maypole and burned Yule logs.
As pagans, we've learned from the Bible and even broken bread with atheists.
In UU, we find our truth.
In UU, we find our meaning.
Hail.
And blessed be.
So those are just some of the paths that people use to search for truth and meaning. And we're very diverse, and we don't tell you which path. We encourage you in your own path. And some of us just identify as Unitarian Universalists, or people who live and try to be good folks and kind folks. You know, it's but we do lift up this principle, and I invite you. Don't unmute yourselves, but I invite you to read these words with me together now for this principle and commit ourselves again. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. In doing that, it reminds me of that song we sing sometimes with words from Rumi. You can join with me in singing that. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Amen, and blessed be. That is my message for you today.